For years, the inner workings of Jeffrey Epstein's network were hidden beneath heavy redactions and sealed court orders. Now, thousands of pages are peeling back, exposing a system of exploitation that operated in plain sight. With Epstein dead, the public demand for answers has naturally turned toward the people who facilitated his crimes. Associates like Ghislaine Maxwell are facing the exact scrutiny Epstein managed to evade for so long. To understand how he built this operation, we have to look past the later narrative of the untouchable billionaire. Epstein dropped out of Cooper Union and NYU's Courant Institute. He never actually earned a college degree. Instead of academic credentials, he relied on social capital. In 1974, he took a job teaching math and physics at Manhattan's elite Dalton School. That classroom gave him direct access to the children of the ultra-wealthy, which he quickly leveraged into an introduction at Bear Stearns, pushing the door open to Wall Street. His foundational success relied entirely on his talent for reading people and extracting favors. By infiltrating these elite social circles early on, he secured the financial and institutional backing that would ultimately serve as his absolute legal shield. Epstein surrounded himself with the most influential people on the planet, yet he systematically targeted teenagers from impoverished neighborhoods and trailer parks, girls entirely disconnected from the power structures he inhabited. Epstein used the physical isolation of Little St. James to maintain absolute control over his victims, systematically cutting off their communication and any avenue for outside help. Keeping this operation running required intense daily logistics. He employed dedicated staff, managed a fleet of private aircraft, and maintained a continuous pipeline of recruitment, paying victims in cash to bring in their peers. When the accounts of these vulnerable girls finally reached the authorities, they didn't find a neutral arbiter. The American legal apparatus repeatedly deferred to Epstein's wealth and connections, leaving his targets defenseless against a powerful predator. In 2005, local police in Palm Beach started investigating tips about underage girls being brought to this mansion for massages. Detectives built a thorough case, documenting clear evidence of coercion, cash payments, and a structured recruitment ring. By 2007, the FBI had expanded the scope, uncovering an interstate trafficking enterprise with dozens of victims. But Epstein's aggressive, highly paid defense team heavily pressured federal prosecutors, shrinking a massive criminal investigation down into a highly irregular 2008 plea deal. This flowchart illustrates the deal, the non-prosecution agreement. Instead of federal trafficking charges, Epstein pleaded guilty to state solicitation, serving 13 months with generous work release. But the NPA contained a hidden clause, extending federal immunity outward, preemptively shielding his uncharged co-conspirators from prosecution. A sprawling human trafficking operation was allowed to continue untouched. Prosecutorial deference had turned the law itself into a binding, government-sanctioned contract protecting the abusers. The terms of that 2008 agreement were negotiated entirely behind closed doors. Prosecutors deliberately kept the victims in the dark, finalizing the deal before any of them even knew it existed. A federal judge later flagged this secrecy as a direct violation of the Crime Victims' Rights Act. The system actively silenced the very people it was supposed to protect to secure a favorable outcome for a well-connected man. When Epstein was arrested again in July 2019 on federal trafficking charges, the dynamic shifted. Bail was denied. For the first time in over a decade, survivors were finally promised an open federal trial where the full evidence would be heard. Then, the institutions failed them once more. Inside the Metropolitan Correctional Center, a cascade of negligence, from severe staffing shortages and sleeping guards to falsified logs, culminated in Epstein taking his own life while awaiting trial. Without a defendant, there could be no criminal trial. His death permanently erased the prospect of a full public record, denying the survivors their day in court and closing the primary avenue for legal accountability. With the criminal case abruptly closed, the pursuit of answers shifted arenas. Survivors and investigative journalists turned to civil litigation, focusing heavily on unsealing the vast trove of depositions and exhibits known as the Epstein files. Starting with major releases in early 2024, these documents began entering the public domain. Step by step, The unredacted pages amplified the survivors' sworn testimony and clarified the sprawling logistics of the enterprise. A comprehensive Department of Justice review confirmed there is no single corroborated client list or hidden blackmail database. What the files do provide, however, is verified sworn documentation of the sheer scale of his high-profile access. Since the courts could not provide a criminal verdict, these documents serve as a decentralized, highly public trial. They form the definitive historical record the survivors spent 20 years fighting to establish. Frustrated by paralyzed criminal courts, survivors took the narrative into their own hands. They relied on sustained public pressure, detailed memoirs, and relentless civil action to force consequences onto a protected circle of elites. The vocal persistence of women like Virginia Giuffre became the primary engine for change. Their published accounts broke through decades of legal suppression, proving impossible for the public to ignore. That pressure yielded tangible results far beyond a courtroom. It triggered severe, real-world fallout for international figures, leading directly to high-profile settlements and the permanent stripping of royal titles. The justice system operated exactly according to its design for the wealthy and well-connected. Blocked by those institutions at every turn, the survivors constructed their own architecture of accountability from the wreckage, demanding a reckoning the law alone refused to provide.